this lady walked into her sister's house, and the little girl was there. And the little girl said, "Who's the man in the hat with you?" And that's when she became afraid.
I asked where he was from, and he just turned his head very weirdly and said, "From here."
It's very clearly the voice of a man whispering the Gettysburg Address.
Welcome to the 108 Effect. This podcast was created as a space to pause, to breathe, and to explore the questions that we don't always have time or permission to ask. Across cultures and traditions, the number 108 represents completion, connection, and alignment. It reminds us that there is a rhythm to life, something both practical and mysterious, that links who we are with something greater. Here, we gather to talk openly about consciousness, intuition, life, death, and the moments that quietly change us. Through honest conversation and shared experience, we explore what it means to trust ourselves, to listen inward, and to live with greater awareness. If you've ever felt a pull towards something deeper, or wondered if there's more to this human experience than what we see on the surface, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we begin this journey together. This is the 108 Effect.
Welcome back to the 108 Effect with your hosts Tina, Dawn, Julie, and yours truly, Laura. Now, last episode, we talked in depth about the Stanley Hotel, one of our favorite ghost hunting locations. And we're going to continue the conversation about ghosts today. But first, we're going to ask what weird thing happened to you this week. Now, I understand that Tina and Dawn, you guys have been together in the same location for the past few days. Tell us what's going on, and then tell us what weird thing happened to you.
You got it. So Tina and I are involved in a project that stemmed from a paranormal investigation that happened a few years ago. So we were invited to be involved in a project that's very fun and exciting, but I wish we could tell you more about it. But we have to keep our lips sealed. It's confidential.
Yeah, we have a few weeks before we're able to, or maybe a few months.
2 to 3 months, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll let you know. We'll revisit this.
So you'll have your lips sealed. We'll have our ears open, waiting for the information. Deal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
And while we were together, of course, whenever we're together, we have weird stuff happen because I feel like it just amps up the energy when we're together.
Yes.
So I think the first thing we heard was a cough in my house. So Dawn has been staying at my house for the project that we've been working on. And we were down in the kitchen and I heard it too, but I think you heard it more prevalent. It's more prevalent for you. Mm-hmm. And then I stopped. And you said, "Did you hear the cough?"
I was like, "What the hell is that? Did you hear that?" Yeah. I thought we were the only ones in the house.
And we were the only ones. Everybody had already left. That was the first day?
Mm-hmm. It was a male. It was a male cough. It was like, clear in there. Yeah. It was very loud, very clear.
And then the next day we were watching. Channeling.
Probably.
Yeah, we were watching Channeling on Gaia. If anybody's interested, and we saw something almost like a bubble.
Yeah.
That went right across the wall. We both reacted
to it at the same time.
We were both looking at the same spot. And we were like, "What?
Whoa.
Did you see that?"
Yeah.
We have no idea what it was. Uh-huh. It was really interesting. And then the other thing that happened was...
we were in the living room today discussing the project and channeling. Mm-hmm. And we heard a male voice talking.
A whole sentence.
In the kitchen, dining room.
Entire sentence.
Yeah.
Were you able to figure out what he said?
No.
No. We did ask for him to interact again, but we didn't hear anything after that. The only other thing that happened was about, I guess, an hour later, the TV went on by itself.
Yeah. That was a couple hours ago.
You were up here, right? She was upstairs. I was downstairs in the kitchen. And when I heard the TV and the music, I thought, "Oh, I guess you were playing some music."
I thought you were turning the music on. That's what I thought.
Weird music, and I was like,
"Yeah,
okay."
Same.
Then I went into the living room, and I saw the TV was on, and the music was coming from the TV. Mm-hmm. And I thought, "What the hell?"
Yeah, you've been in charge of all the music, so I was like, "All right, she wants to try something new."
Well, all of us will be getting together soon, so I can't wait for the what weird thing happened to you this week after we've all been together because
that'll be
yeah.
fun.
Oh my God.
It's
I'll have lots
crazy.
to talk about.
Yeah, it's crazy what happens when we're all together.
Energy times 5 or 6.
Exactly.
Mhm.
All right, we're going to move right into talking about ghosts. And one of the things that we all just discussed before we decided to start recording was talking about what kind of ghosts are out there and really what are ghosts. And I think one of the most prevalent type are the ones of deceased loved ones that come to visit us. Any of you had that experience?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think for most of us, we've all had that experience. But for me, myself, I think I've had a couple experiences recently too, but the one that I've talked about the most was when my grandmother came to visit me. But after that, I've had other family members that have come to visit me as well. And each one of them, it leaves a mark, and some of them come to visit for a specific reason, and some come to visit just to say hi. And recently, I feel like they were just saying hi. I had gotten in the car with my husband, and I turned to him and I said, "Did we get a new, air freshener? Because it smelled like candy apples." And it took me right back to a memory that I had of my mother. And I was thinking to myself, "Oh, I love that smell. I don't know where you got that air freshener at, but just make sure you get another one." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. It's the same air freshener we've had." So I took it out, and it was the Gain air freshener. It smells like Gain.
We've had a lot of people on our Facebook page. We put out a post that got thousands of views and almost 600 comments. And this is just recently. It might grow by the time this airs. But we had quite a few people answer the question if they've ever experienced ghosts that mentioned that they were met by a loved one in some way. And one of them actually mentioned the smell, her grandmother's perfume.
Okay.
Yeah. And
the funny thing is, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to add so that I don't forget, that was my daughter's birthday, and I didn't realize it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
Wow.
But yeah, so it seemed like an actual reason why the visit happened, but
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, and there was another gentleman who private messaged us and was talking about how he felt his mother, her presence right after she had passed, like within a day, and that something lightly touched his shoulder, and he knew immediately that it was her, and he's never felt anything like that since. So this seems to be something fairly common. I've had a couple of situations where just not necessarily a smell or anything like that, but I knew immediately who it was. And that's the strange thing too, if you're talking about somebody that's been deceased for a while. Julie, have you ever had anything like that happen?
Yep. When Tina started talking about smells, it brought me back to when my dad was really sick, and we were all taking turns taking care of him because my mom was also had a hip replacement, so she was in a nursing home for a little bit. But I remember one morning I woke up and he was still in bed, but I was smelling coffee and toast, and it woke me up. And I was like, "Oh gosh, that really smells good." And then I was like, "Wait, there's only 2 of us here, and I know he didn't get up and do that." So I feel like it was his mom thanking me for being there, almost.
Yeah.
And
I think
just thought that was
has
kinda cool.
a lot to do with what kind of sensation you have or you get at that very moment. Now, my story, I have several people that like to hear this story, and I'll try to shorten it for you. But my grandmother and grandfather came to live with my husband and I. My grandfather passed away about 6 months in. We kind of knew that was coming, but my grandmother lived for about 2 more years. The relationship between my grandmother and my mother was complicated, so my mom only came to visit a couple of times. But after my grandmother died, I wholly expected her to come to me somehow. And several months went by, and it was the first time that my mother and I were together after my grandmother died. And we went to one of those little frou-frou girly places where they serve you cold salad meat stuff. And and all the teacups come in different, patterns, and it's just a real cozy, lady-like place. It was really cold and raining that day, and we had gone inside, and she and I had never had a discussion about what transpired over the last couple of years with the care of my grandmother. And my mom thanked me. She said, "Thank you for taking care of my mom," and that meant so much to me. And about that time, the waitress came over and asked what we wanted. My mother wanted coffee. I wanted hot chocolate. It's cold as heck that day and rainy. And when she walked away, I looked at my mom. I said, "Mom, Grandma hasn't come to me yet." And, if after so many episodes, that I grew up with this in my family, so it wasn't an unusual question. My mother said, "Oh, she's come to me." And, I probably said, "Well, damn it." It's like, that's not fair. And my mom said, "She'll probably come in a very big way." And so the girl came back with our cups, and we placed our order. And my mom went to drink out of hers. She was having coffee. And I looked at the bottom of the cup, and I gasped. And my mom said, "What?" I said, "Look at the bottom of your cup." Well, she looked on the inside bottom, and she's like, "What?" But what I didn't know is on the inside of the cup were the words La Campanella, which is Italian, means little bell. And we started laughing because my grandmother had this stupid bell that she would ring when she needed me. I hid it after the first week. Hid it far away, I still have it, but I hid that little fucker. And I said, "You are not ringing that bell for me. That's not how this is going to work." And so we both kind of laughed because my mother, we're Italian. And I said, "No, Mom, look at the bottom of the cup." And she did. And on the rim of the bottom, it had my grandmother's name over and over and over. And her name was
cool.
Her name was Lena. So it's not a very, popular name. What am I missing?
That's just a synchronicity. Sorry, we can't say anymore.
Okay. So I started to cry. My mother started to cry. And the waitress comes back, and she's like, "Is everything okay?" Because we're like, "Ah," And I said, "Everything is fine." I said, "Do you sell these cups, these teacups?" She goes, "Yeah, we sell them in sets of 4, and they come with little matching plates." I said, "I want all of them." Because I knew right then and there I was going to fight over it with my mother.
Yeah.
So she came back, she brought us our food, and she came back a couple more times and said, "We're looking everywhere. We cannot find the other cups, the other teacups that they're missing. We can't find the match." She goes, "We don't know where that one came from."
Oh my God.
And that to me was, there's,
yeah.
right. There's
That's cool.
there's
that story.
There's so many things that can be synchronicity or a coincidence, but that was a lot in about a 20-minute time period. But so that is one kind of ghost or spirit, whatever you want to call it. But then there's the drive-by. I think we've all had a drive-by where we've heard that voice or heard our name called, or thought we saw a shadow or whatever. Anybody want to speak to that? No? Crickets?
No. Well, before we go on to that, because I always have a story for almost, I think, everything, which is bizarre. I want to go back because I think we can mention that synchronistic thing.
Are you sure?
I think so, because why would it be not? We'll ask. But on the project that we just worked on, there was somebody who was very prevalent in the project, and her name was Lena.
Really?
Yeah.
And I just said to her when you said something a few minutes ago, I said, "Okay, Lena."
Yeah, you did.
I just said it right before we started taping.
I did. I heard you say that,
funny.
and I thought I must have heard wrong.
No.
Did not hear wrong. I said, okay, Lena.
Yep.
Oh, that's
See?
funny.
For our viewers,
Wow.
this is the shit that happens with us.
Yeah.
So raise your hand if you've ever had your name called. You've heard a voice say your name. When you
A
know
lot.
nobody was in the room, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
That just happened. That just happened yesterday. Where I said, "Did you call me?" Or
Yeah,
wait, was
today.
that
It was today.
today?
It was today. It happened to her, yeah.
Yeah, she was brushing her teeth in the bathroom. I was in the bedroom, and
And you came out. You said,
I came in. And I was like, "Oh, what did you need?"
I was.
And she was brushing her teeth. She went,
with an electric toothbrush.
Yeah.
I did not call her name.
I thought I heard you call Donnie.
And we were the only people here.
So
Now,
Nobody else
here's
saw
here's another question on
And
that.
was that, before, was that a male voice?
no, that was a female voice.
Okay.
Mhm.
Every time it's happened to me, I've had different voices, and I'm sure that's probably the same with all of you, but I've never been frightened by it, ever.
No. Mm-mm.
No,
I immediately go, yeah, what, hello? Because it's never...
I do too.
Yeah, it's never been, I answer before I realize I'm the only one home, or I'm the only one in the room, or, whatever. So,
Me too.
I've had it happen at different places, not just in my home. Same. Julie, what's been your experience?
I'll be when I was working home all the time, I'd be sitting at my computer and then I'll hear my name, and I know my husband's retired, so I know he's either at his meetings or he's somewhere in the house. But when I kind of look around and it's just like trying to figure out where he's at, it's like he's not anywhere, or he's not even home. And so it's just like, but sometimes it's hard to tell if it was a male or female voice.
Yeah.
And now I want to ask you a question, a follow-up question for Julie. So did that phenomenon start to happen before or after you met us, or before or after you started to really open up to the paranormal events or spirituality, however you want to say it?
That'd be after.
It would be after? Okay.
I think after.
Yeah.
I mean, the strange thing about when I heard the voice, it sounded like her.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
It makes sense that it was a female voice, but
Mhm.
I wanted to ask because so far we've only heard male voices here.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think it was a ghost or spirit, or was it your higher self? Was it a spirit guide? What do you think it was?
I don't know, because I was literally brushing my teeth thinking about...
No, I mean,
lunch.
anytime it's happened to you. Anytime it's happened to you.
You know, one time when I was meditating just a couple weeks ago, I heard a female voice say my name, and I actually thought it was my mom.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Because it kind of sounded like her.
And for our viewers, Julie's mother passed away late last year. And so was it last year? Was it early this year?
Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh. It was the last day of November.
Okay.
Say the end of November.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah.
She'll show up again and yell at you.
Oh, I know. I know.
Well, I've heard something told me to turn around one time in my house when I was alone. One time I heard my name. It was clearly my brother's voice, but he was in a different state at the time. I've heard other names. And you all know this, the famous Myrtle, I don't know, I think I know who Myrtle is now, and then there's the Drive-By, and something that always would happen whenever we would get together in our Zoom calls is one or more of you would see a strange person walk behind me or show their face right behind me, or, and the house I'm in now is I've been in the house 5 years. It's only 5 years old. The house that we left, I'm pretty sure I brought things home with me because it was not haunted when we moved into that house. It was a new build. We did not have ghosts at that time, but when we left, I was so afraid we were going to have to let the new owners know it was haunted. So if you guys see this, hey, sorry, but
Yeah.
Tina, I think the last time we all got together, you and our mentor, who has been leading the charge for the last 4 years, both saw a face beside my face.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I saw it
Mhm.
on one side and she saw it on the other, which was
Yeah.
also interesting because
Yeah,
we both kind of reacted to it at the same time.
at the exact
So
same
that was-
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the same face or a different face? Do
I
you
don't
think?
know.
I can't
I don't-
remember.
I remember that Tina could see it more clearly. Like she could see the eyes and the face.
It was a male.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's not the
No.
first time you've all seen a male in my house that shouldn't have been there. I don't know how else to say it. I've seen apparitions, and I recently saw one just walking in the yard that literally was walking and then just disappeared. And I call these drive-bys. And I have a story if you have a minute, because I think our viewers will love this. Perfect example of a drive-by. So there's this friend of mine, very good friend. He's like a brother to me. And his mom had a history of seeing apparitions, usually little small children. And she is your typical Southern, Bible wielding, perfect grandma. I mean, she's just adorable and loved God, more than life itself. And she walked his way and she raised her children to be God-fearing and you name it, just above all. But whenever she would see one of these apparitions, she was convinced it was a demon. And so her son had her come talk to me, and I said, no. I said, not everybody sees them, but, what about this little girl frightened you? Well, she shouldn't have been there. I get that. I get it. The fear of not knowing what's going on. But the little girl didn't do anything to her, and she would see these things over time. So one day my friend calls me up and he goes, oh no, my mom is all in a huff. And I said, why? And he was being named a judge, and she had found a toy gavel that he had. So she made a little video of her showing him the gavel. He said, can I send it to you? I said, absolutely. And I was floored by what I saw and heard. So we're going to play that now.
Well, here's the little gavel that you asked about, and Dad said Freddie Yerby built it for you. It's just really cute. Well worn. Enjoy. Judge.
7 years ago.
Yep. And so the interesting thing was,
Is that President Lincoln?
we will put that on our website for others to see, or put it on the website with this episode. But it's very clearly the voice of a man whispering the Gettysburg Address. So I call her, trying to calm her down. She wants to call her preacher. She wants to have the house cleansed. She went, it's a demon. And I said, for what reason would a demon show up and recite the Gettysburg Address?
Right.
and it's one of the when you're talking about EVPs or electronic voice phenomenon, that one is incredible. You have to understand, this woman doesn't know how to lie. The last thing she wants to lie about are demons in her house. And she was not even aware that she had caught a voice until her son said, you need to watch it and listen to it. And, she lost it all. But that to me is a perfect example of kind of something coming by and was just kind of triggered in some way by the gavel. And, the town that they live in was very much, I think Sherman's army came through during the Civil War. Makes sense. So it was unusual for that to happen.
That's very unusual.
Yeah, that's a really good catch.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's the
Mhm.
first
Very
time I've
cool.
played it for anybody. So
Oh, wow. Oh, my
But
God.
that and I've had people come to my house and they said they would see an old lady sitting in the chair just relaxing. I'm like, okay.
When I was younger, my mother and me would often hear things together. And I remember one time, and this happened quite a few times, but the one time I was downstairs, and I think it was one of the first times that she heard it as well. I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. I was getting ready to go outside with my friends, and a male voice, it always seems to be a male voice, very clearly said, Tina. And then my mom came down. She said, who is here? Because it was just me and her and my little brother at night. My father worked night work. And so I said, I don't know. And I looked at her. I said, you heard that? Because I had heard it before. She said, yeah, I heard that. And she said, it's not funny. Where's your friend hiding? And I said, Mom, there's nobody here but us.
Right.
They're on their way. I'm going to go out, but they're not here yet. And it was a very deep male voice. So even if one of my friends were there, we were all like 11.
Right. It was your friend Jimmy.
Yeah. Right. But the funny thing was that a couple of years later, we would be driving around trying to find a parking spot. We've had to run in and pay a bill. I'll never forget. And we had my little brother in the car, and she was a little bit panicked because the bill was late and she was paranoid, that we were going to get late charges or whatever the situation was. And we were in a very busy neighborhood. It wasn't easy to find a parking spot. And so we had driven around probably the block, maybe like at least 4 or 5 times. And she was getting upset. And that male voice said, there's a parking spot around the corner to the left. And I looked at her and she looked at me and she said, you heard that, right? And I said, I did. And she goes, what do we got to lose? So she did what it said, and there was a parking spot there.
That's great.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
oh my
great.
God.
And
That's
then she
cool.
said, it is cool. And then she ran in and she paid the bill, and I stayed with my brother. We stayed in the car, and she locked up the car, and she got back in and she said, never speak of this to anyone. No one will ever believe us anyway.
Right.
And I said, okay.
So it begins. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, that's crazy, right? Those two drive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We're talking about what exactly is it? I've never come across one. I have a dear friend who has one in her house, a mimic. They're more like tricksters where they will copy a voice and pretend to be.
Sound like you?
And yeah, I mean, she just said that voice sounded like me, but
yeah,
I don't know.
She had an occasion where she and her husband had gone out to dinner. Her mother was watching the children, and one of the little girls, she was into TikTok, and they were making a TikTok video, and they heard the daughter come in downstairs and holler up the stairs. I don't remember exactly what it was. I have to see if I can get this video. But she yells up, we're home, or something like that, and they go, why are you back so early? And nobody answered, and they went downstairs and she wasn't there. And at that exact time, they were in the middle of dinner at a restaurant downtown. So it wasn't her, but on the video, if you knew her, that was her voice, and it made no sense, but it had been happening and happening, and that was the one time that they were able to catch it.
It could be a mimic. It could be timelines.
A timeline shift, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But either way, it's kind of scary if you're the only one home and it's at night.
Yeah. My friend Matt came to me one time. A lot of people say, help me. I have a ghost. He was very upset because he had reason to believe his mother had come to visit him. And he found a seashell on the bed in his guest room where she always stayed. And they have no idea where it came from. It was just sitting on the dresser. They hadn't had anybody there. They had just cleaned it up weeks before. No idea where it came from. So he thought, again, that first thought that it was maybe his mother. But he was helping the family get ready for his mother's funeral. The event was going to have some of her favorite things around, flowers, tea sets, all these things they have around that she loved. And one of them was a tea set, and he couldn't find it, and he was just exhausted and tired, and he was teary-eyed. And he had been down in the basement, and he'd been looking and looking and looking, could not find this tea set that she loved. And he sat on the steps, put his head in his hands, and he heard clear as day, they're in a box under the stairs. So he went under the stairs, and he looked, and lo and behold, there it was. And he comes to me for, help me. I'm like, help you with what? She was helping you find something that meant a lot to her. And he's like, but, and not anybody has the answers. Nobody has the answers. Now, there are a couple of different types of hauntings that we've all been involved in: intelligent and residual. Who wants to give our viewers a lesson in the difference?
Julie.
I don't know if I'm the right one. Okay, residual was kind of on a loop, right? Something just keeps playing out and it's just on a loop. There's you can't interact with it or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just on a loop and it just keeps happening whether you walk through them accidentally or whatever. They're just going to keep doing that. And an intelligent one is where you could ask questions and they would answer.
Right.
Like if somehow answer like on a recorder or something.
See,
Or
Julie's
bang,
queen. She's queen.
Yeah. For all you people out there that think that you can't learn and you don't know anything, this gal right here,
you can learn.
And I love the fact that this has opened her up for other things.
Absolutely.
We have talked about that. Now, the residual, a lot of times it's the energy in a room. And the way that I explain this to people when I give talks is you walk into a room. If you ever walked in a room and knew something happened, like somebody was mad at somebody or there was just a fight or what's going on, because you could feel the tension. We know that tension. And so that energy then lives in that space. And it's very possible that when you walk in after somebody's kicked a desk, that something happened. You don't know what it was, but it's enough to affect you. And so if there's a place that has been used a lot, the most common residual haunting is footsteps. You hear the footsteps at the same time every night, or you hear somebody walking across the ceiling and you're like, I don't have a room up there. I don't understand. There's a lot of energy, sometimes even whispers. You hear whispers and stuff, or people in another room talking, but it's the same thing all and on. That's what Julie meant by a loop. Now, an intelligent haunting is, yes, when they interact with you. And let's talk about how we get these entities that interact with us. I know one of the most followed, possibly revered by TV watchers, he likes to yell and scream at these entities. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. I just don't think that you need to antagonize. They might be working very hard to contact you and maybe would not react if they are being yelled at.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, think about it. If I passed on and I was hanging around, haunting Laura.
And I said, hey, who's that? That's different than, show me what you got. Yeah.
I'd be like,
just being me.
That's right.
They'll just walk away. They'll go away and not give you nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that brings on negative things.
Yes.
Honestly. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you're putting negative energy out there.
Yeah.
I think it reminds me of the time we were in Gettysburg.
Oh.
Oh gosh. I'm more of a, I wouldn't say quiet, but when I investigate, I'm just kind of there asking some questions and trying to get the feel for things. I remember you scared the shit out of me because you were right next to me. You said we were in, I think, Devil's Den.
Yes.
And you had decided that you were going to reenact the war for them. And she said, boom. And then started to scream, get down in the hole. And I'm going, what is happening?
I was just trying to
Get the shit out of me.
Now that's different.
Please
That's
tell me you
different
threw
than
yourself
me.
to the ground.
But I will say, it garnered a reaction.
Yeah.
And we got a full sentence.
Yes, he needed help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he needed help. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to
Yes.
me, I was like horrified. I
Oh
was
my God, my stomach's cramping. I laughed so hard.
Now, have you ever
Yeah.
gone to a place that was haunted, okay, that proved to be haunted, and then go back years later, and have you noticed a difference? Like, the more, I would say, the more popular a haunted location becomes, the more people that come to visit
Right.
it. Have you
Right.
noticed a change in the location at all?
Yeah. When you're first doing it, there hasn't been a lot of people there. So your interactions are more, I guess, I don't want to say pure, but they're new to the spirit, I guess. But once loads and loads of people come year after year after year, a lot of times there are entities that can be created, can be, I don't know if that's that right word, created or born
Yeah,
due to
through the energy. The energy
Right.
being put out there during an investigation.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's called an egregore.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
and the people that don't realize it, but they're going, it could start from a rumor that there's a little girl spirit, and all these people are talking to this little girl spirit, and the energy builds up and turns
Mhm.
into this spirit. And it's nothing more than energy that has been created by these people.
Yeah.
And the more power they give it, the more, it'll exist.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of the Hat Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Hat Man, they say, is an egregore. But here's the thing, though. Like, if the energy is created, does this energy stay around even after the energy of the people that created it leaves? Because, and the reason I asked that question, and I'm not sure of the answer, is my children had experiences with this Hat Man, which at the time, this was many years ago, didn't even know that this thing existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't call it the Hat Man. I just was explaining it to somebody one day and trying to figure out what it was that they were seeing. And they said, oh, that's the Hat Man. And then somebody else said, well, you must have told your children about that for them to have experienced it. And that's not true.
Right.
Never true, because first of all, I wouldn't do that to my children. And second of all, they had no idea what that was, and they had never been exposed to it, yet they saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
what does that say about it? Is that something that can...
And not only you, but your friend, our friend.
Yeah, our friend.
She had a dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, she actually did have and that's how her and I began to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she had the same experience, and when she came over, we talked about it, and so she didn't know what it was either. Because not everybody's is into the paranormal like that and knows those types of things, and to say that
Uh-huh.
somebody must have known about something is a little bit ridiculous. But go ahead.
Well, I had a young lady came to me and was telling me about her experience with the Hat Man. She called him Bob. And everywhere it started showing up when she was in college. And she moved a couple times during college, but he moved with her because she thought he was just in that first dorm or whatever it was. And so she just started calling him Bob, and because he never hurt her or anything like that. She was scared at first. She kind of got used to him. And she contacted me years later, and her sister had a little girl, and at this time the girl had turned 4. And this lady walked into her sister's house, and the little girl was there. And the little girl said, "Who's the man in the hat with you?" And that's when she became afraid. She was afraid for the little girl, not for her, but for her too. It was validation that whatever she'd been seeing, this little girl had seen the same thing. And she had never spoken about it to her sister, to the niece or anything. And yet she was having experience. I think the Hat Man in and of itself is one of those things that a lot of people experience that needs to be questioned, needs to be investigated, just like people who have been abducted by aliens. They all come with the same stories. They come with the same descriptions, and they're all experiencing it. And so, what are we dealing with? And that's a very specific kind of entity.
I mean, to go back and answer Tina's question, does that entity stay when the egregore has been created? We can only give our opinions, but energy doesn't just disappear.
No. And you got to wonder, does it become part of the residual energy of the place? I've seen situations where the house has been blessed, or people say, go away. And if it does, where does it go? What is it? I think it's a very complex type of entity. I can't say the word, but it was created by the energy of these people going. So you have to be responsible when you go into a location, because if you put anger and antagonistic, practices
energy
out there, you're going to get back what you get.
To add more to that story too, our hat man was in the neighborhood. So he was at my house. He was at the neighbor's house across the street, which is how me and her began talking. And then at one point, my daughter had gone over to an older gentleman's house across the street from me to, I think we had gone in to pick something up and to give him a hand with something. And she got very, very quiet when we walked in. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No." She said, "The hat man is here." Because by then we had known what to call him or what people were calling him.
Right.
And I said, I didn't see him, but she did. And I said, "Okay," and then I got her out of there fairly quickly. So he did travel.
Yeah.
So it's not like they just stay in that location either.
Right. And he's kind of like, is it possible that the hat man is an elemental or a kind of not urban legend, but along the lines of the Mothman, of the Chupacabra, things like that people have seen but can't explain? Is it an interdimensional being? There's so many questions. But that brings us to apparitions. Now, Julie, you have a story, and we've already mentioned Gettysburg, and you have a story about seeing one in Gettysburg.
Yes, in Gettysburg, Dawn and Tina and a few other people. I don't think you were there with us, Laura.
No.
Tina wasn't with us either.
Tina was in Gettysburg.
She was in Gettysburg, but there was an important football game on.
Yes.
So anyway, the rest of our group, which was, half a dozen, 8, 9 people, were in Gettysburg, and we were going around Devil's Den. And then there was this one part, it was kind of getting dark, but then our group got together towards the end, and we were just kind of talking about what we were experiencing in that. And then somebody noticed this guy that was a little ways away, but he was acting strange. And then he would look at us, and then he would walk over and go behind a tree. And then he would look, and then he'd go behind something else tall that he could, a very soldier-like thing to do, moving from something that he could be behind to something he could be behind. And eventually he kept getting closer, and then we just stopped talking what we were talking about. And then we were paying attention to this guy because we noticed that he was dressed in a uniform, a Civil War uniform. And then he kept getting kind of closer and closer, and then we started standing closer and closer together because it was just kind of freaking us out, because it was just really weird the way that he was acting. And it was getting dark. There weren't a lot of people there, I don't think, anymore, and not around us, but everybody had their devices out, and then their devices stopped working. Everybody stopped working at the same time. And then he got close enough, and then he kind of walked by, and he just was like really weird. You didn't get a whole lot of reaction from him like that. And a couple people asked him questions like, I don't know. Don, do you remember?
Yeah, I talked to him.
Yeah. What did you ask him?
Of course she did.
I asked where he was from. And he just turned his head very weirdly and said, "From here."
Yeah.
And we were
yeah.
like, the energy that just came off was like palpable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Then Cheryl, she said, "Oh, we're just here paying our respects." And he just kind of like did not respond, turned his head, and then started walking up to
Well,
the
I
rock
think
of Devil's Den.
somebody shined a flashlight at him,
See,
and he didn't
that was
respond to
as
that
he was
either.
Yeah, as he
As he was
walking
walking away.
Yep, somebody
Yeah.
shined a light on him, and I was with your sister, and we both saw at the same time. It looked like his eyes were like flashlights, and then went into like normal eyes. And we're like, "Did you see that?" And that's when my recorder stopped working.
And he didn't react when you guys put the flashlight in his face.
He did not react when we put the
Not
flash.
normal because it was dark by then.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What was
And
what was his appearance like? Was he any parts
He
of him
was-
transparent, or did he just come
No.
off
No, he
looking
looked
really
like a real
weird?
person.
Really real?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he had
and
full,
we kept going
full
back and
Union
forth.
garb
Yeah.
on. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what prefaced it, because we were in the area where we were trying to, get the soldier to get some help. And
Yeah, that was me and you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was me and you. And my brother and Cheryl were like, "Hey, shh, shh." They heard walking. Walking. And like we could hear it. We see this guy walk off the rock, go up to the cannon.
So he's got the boots on.
He's got the boots on.
So you hear the
full Union garb. He walks up to that cannon. Like Julie said, he walked behind tree, walked over to a field. I said to my brother, "What the heck is that guy doing over there?" He says, "Probably going to the bathroom," but he said, "Probably taking a piss." And I go, "Well, that's
But
rude.
it was weird.
That's rude." And then that's when he started walking towards us. I was like, "Oh shit." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I will tell this story from my point
Okay.
of view because I wasn't there. Okay. So I
Right.
was watching a football game because it was a very important game and I'm a big football fan. So I stayed back at which I believe was the Tilly Pierce house.
Yes.
We were all at the Tilly Pierce
Yes.
house. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I stayed back to watch the football game while everybody else went out. And, and I am a big believer in the fact that for whatever reason, I wasn't meant to be there to see this event. So I was sitting there. It was halftime. I'll never forget. They bust through the door because it was a late game. I don't think the game started until like 9.
I took my life in my hands in the next
Yeah,
action.
because I was like, she turned off the TV. I was like, oh, hell no.
You need to hear this. I said,
When she said that and everybody else came in and they were all like trying to talk at one time, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like what just happened? Now they got my attention.
Right.
And so they tell the story about how they could hear the footsteps coming. And then he stands over by I think the cannon first is what they told me. And what you did was you played the audio for me. So I also heard the footsteps on the audio. What I heard was the footsteps, and I heard everybody going, shh, shh. So all that's on the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the audio dies. And then they start to tell me that he was by the cannon. Then he walked over to the tree and then he came towards them. And you guys were kind of around the witness tree, if I remember correctly. And then when you asked him the question, he said, "From here," almost like it was a question back.
Yep.
And
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and I believe it was my sister that took that flashlight and shined it in his eyes. And
I think it was.
React.
Yeah.
And then Cheryl got all nervous and said, "Well, we're just paying our respects,
Yeah.
And then the next thing, I was laughing pretty hard because you guys were super excited, but you started to run across the field. And all I kept saying was, it was like almost like Baywatch Paranormal.
No way.
You guys were running across the field trying to get to the car.
No,
because you freaked you guys out.
Well, before that though, when he like literally walked, he just like didn't answer us anymore. And he just turned his head and he walked up to the rock, remember? And then he went down behind it and we went and looked and we could not find him. There were like 3 or 4 other people that were way on the other side of Devil's Den. And we actually went and talked to those people and we're like, "Did you see anybody here? Like a reenactor or anything?" No, nobody could see it. We could not find him. Then we started walking up and then we got a little nervy and then we just started running and we just were laughing. And we did ask the next day, were there any reenactors in the park? And there was not any reenactors.
And from my point of view, that when you guys were telling that story, all I could think about was because the Gettysburg battlefield is so choppy. You guys are lucky you didn't get hurt because they were moving at a pretty good speed. My sister was like, she was like, oh my gosh, I almost died trying to get to the car.
And then the recorder worked in the car.
And then
in the car.
You also drove from my
We did.
understanding. You drove around looking for him.
Yeah, we did.
In the car.
Yes.
Well, we did not find him.
Yes.
Yep.
So there was all. I mean, that's just all that I remember when you guys came in.
And literally behind that rock was like the pathway, the road. There was nowhere he could hide.
Right.
Rock and road. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere.
You know, Gettysburg is
That's
one of those places that the first time I went there, you could feel the energy right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for any of our viewers that go on paranormal investigations, you realize over time you start to learn and read the energy in the place you are. And if you've ever walked into a room and you just had this heaviness in your chest and in your heart, you know that there's something there. And that is all of Gettysburg. I mean, it just, from the minute Casey and I got there, we both felt the energy there, and that, not just the spiritual, but the emotional energy that comes from that place. It's fantastic for the amount of things that happen there, but it makes perfect sense. One of the most common residual hauntings that you'd find at Gettysburg are the soldiers marching in unison across the battlefield. That's a very common thing that is seen there. Or the soldiers kind of walking back and forth. Is it them, though? Is it the spirit of the actual soldier, or is it the energy manifesting itself somehow? Whether or not we'll ever really know is hard to say. I do know that, and I truly believe this because this is what's happened to me. You guys can speak to it, but it's kind of like, Julie, the minute you had your first paranormal investigation and experience, it started opening you up to other things. And for me, after I saw my apparition, my first one, which was my dog that had died 4 years prior, I see them more often now. I can't always tell if I'm seeing a spirit, disappearing right in front of me. That's a giveaway. But it opens you up for more experiences, like hearing things more, like seeing things more, smelling things.
Yep.
Well, I think that the more you see, the more you believe, the more you open up, the more you start, the more they come to you.
You'll experience. Yeah.
You'll experience. Yeah.
We're kind of running out of time here. Is there any advice you want to give anybody that's interested in ghost hunting or has already been, and there's something they should or shouldn't be doing?
When you first get started, if you're going to be serious about it, get some of your own equipment. Take it on a couple investigations that are group investigations. Perhaps there's an event in your area. There's so many on, the East Coast. You could find one anywhere pretty much. See how you like it. See what you think of it. Do things that you never thought you would do before.
Okay.
Step out of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid. When you get to a point where you feel like this is something that you're really interested in, then see if you can find like-minded people that will go with you, and so that you don't have to pay the exorbitant prices that these events can charge sometimes. And you can do it on your own, or you can really do it anywhere. You could go into a park.
That's what I was just going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. You don't have to go to an event and pay a ton of money. You utilize your body. Open up your senses. Listen, feel, just make yourself hyper aware.
Yeah.
You can get a little EVP recorder. Honestly, that's all you need. Just yourself and an EVP recorder. Start out. Go to a park. Go to an old building. I wouldn't recommend investigating in your home, own home, if you want to sleep. But if there is something going on, there is nothing wrong with turning your recorder on to get some answers. Leave it on and just let it roll, and you can listen to it the next day, and figure that stuff out. But, it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. Like Tina said, find your like-minded people. If you're interested in this, it is addictive because it will start to open avenues and just open you up to things you have never thought you would ever see,
Yeah.
hear, or experience.
And I think the first time that you actually catch something when you're out investigating,
Yeah.
it is a paradigm shift. It's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing that you can do it and that you can do it on your own. A lot of people try to debunk a lot of these things, and there's just no explanation for a lot of it. If somebody could come and say, this is how it works and, blah, 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 blah. All right, well, maybe I'll take a listen to you. But nobody has ever been able to do that.
Yeah.
They can't debunk all this. You're getting direct answers to questions. You're getting names. People are calling your names. Sometimes you'll get names of the people in the location. Sometimes you'll hear, like we heard when we were in Massachusetts. We were in a van together and we were all traveling around. And then when we did the ghost box later that night, they actually said things that we had talked about in the van.
Yep.
And there was also a location that we'd gone to that I won't mention because, I don't know if that would be okay. But it's not a common name at all because it's not a real name.
Yeah.
It's a made up name.
Right.
And that came through the box.
Right.
So unless you can figure that out, you know what I mean? Give me a call because there's no way.
Well, I think it's important if you, when you're doing this with other people, that you trust each other wholeheartedly. Julie, you have any advice?
I was just going to say, well, as one place to go, it would be like old graveyards, because there's quite a few out by us. And then I was just also going to say, like, if you're new and you don't even know what equipment you want or anything, to go on some other tours that are doing it and then just kind of absorb it and see how it goes and how it works in that, as long as you follow the rules.
Yeah.
So you don't contaminate anything.
Well, or shine your flashlight in somebody else's face. I
actually did that to Tina.
That's my biggest pet peeve. It's like, really? Really? Now, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but I am going to bring up one thing, and it has a lot to do with your intention. If you go into a place and you invite whoever's here, come. If there's somebody here, come and talk to me. Well, you don't know what you're inviting. And that goes back to the Ouija board. The paranormal team I'm part of, we will not go to a home where amateurs have used a Ouija board because the board itself is not evil. But you can invite evil into your home accidentally by just saying, if there's anybody here, come on in. Well, really? People won't do that to their own neighbors, but you're just like opening up, it's like, come on in. So you got to be responsible. That is one of those things, you don't want to mess around with any kind of divinity tools where you're inviting somebody in and you're not first asking them to only come with light and love in their heart, with only good intentions. And it's okay at the end to say a little prayer and say, you know what, you guys stay here. You don't have to follow me home. I don't want you in my space. It's okay.
Exactly.
But talk to them like real people because they once were. So we're at the end of the time, but I don't think this is the end of talking about ghosts. Not really sure what our next episode is, but one of the things that got us into all of the woo-woo stuff, I call it the gateway, was our ghost hunting and our love for the paranormal. So we will be sharing more later. But until next time, we all are going to say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
As we close today's conversation, we invite you to take a moment and notice what resonated with you. Maybe it was a thought, a feeling, or a quiet knowing that surfaced as you listened. Whatever it was, trust that it arrived for a reason. The 108 effect is about remembering that awareness begins within, that clarity doesn't always come from searching outward, but from learning to listen inward. Thank you for sharing this space with us, for your openness and for your willingness to explore the deeper layers of life alongside us. If this episode spoke to you, feel free to subscribe and follow along so that you can continue these conversations with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and trust the compass within. This is the 108 Effect.